you. Your questions. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes. So once again, welcome to the Board of Studies and live virtual classes on the taxation. We are still discussing on the first chapter, which is GST in India and introduction. So we discussed in our previous class, which was on Thursday, we were discussing about taxation system, what is difference between direct tax and indirect tax, what are the taxes which has got subsumed under GST. The presentation will be uploaded so you could have a revision from them. And students who couldn't attend last time can also go through the presentation and can go through the video recording so that you can grasp through what is missed out. And we understood what is a interstate transaction, what is a intrastate transaction, and the various aspects of GST in India, what are the tax various laws which are there. And we are then discussing the framework of GST in India. We understood, we were on this slide on registration. We understood that there are three different categories for registration. Some states, the limit is 10 lakhs. Some states, first 4 states, the limit is 10 lakhs. The other 6 states, the limit is 20 lakhs. And then all the rest of the states, for services, it is 20 lakhs. And for goods, it is 40 lakhs. So that is the limit for registration. Going forward, today we'll proceed with framework of GST in India, and then we'll proceed with important constitutional provisions, which is very important. So what we'll do is, in terms of structuring of the session, we will go through the framework of GST in India completely. I'll explain you the input tax credit, and then I will take up your questions. So keep posting your questions. I'll be taking them after the framework. And then at the end, after understanding the Constitution of India, I'll be taking up the questions so that we make maximum utilization of the time. Okay, so we understood the registration portion. Then the composition scheme. What is composition scheme is, we will get into the composition scheme in detail. So what each of these topics we will get in detail at the respective chapters, but to understand the complete framework, I'm just giving you a brief understanding. Now I am registered under GST, correct? We learned about registration. I've touched the limit. Now, after taking registration, I am a small trader. Like few people take registration who are having business of 100 crores. I'm having a business of 1 crore rupees. So I am compared to a big businessman, I am a very small registered person, small taxable person. Now you can't expect from me that all the compliances what big and enterprises do, that will be done by me. Okay? So आप मुझसे छोटे व्यापारी से ये एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर सकते हो कि जो भी कंप्लायंस बड़े व्यापारी करते हैं वो छोटे व्यापारी भी करे, करेक्ट? तो इसीलिए छोटे व्यापारी को राहत देने के लिए एक स्कीम लेके आया है जिसका नाम है कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम. So what does this composition scheme say? That if you are having turnover up to 1.5 crores, then you can get into the composition scheme. You don't have to find out the rate for each and every product, or whatever products you sell, it will be taxable at a flat rate. What is that flat rate? The flat rate is just 1%. You just pay 1%, don't claim any input tax credit, and keep filing annually one return, make the payment on a quarterly basis, and file one annual return. Your compliance burden is reduced. तो कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम क्या करेगा? साल में एक ही बार रिटर्न फाइल करेगा और क्वार्टरली टैक्स पे करेगा. वो इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट क्लेम नहीं कर पाएगा. तो ये एक ही चीज प्रॉब्लम है, वरना उसका कंप्लायंस बर्डन बहुत कम हो जाएगा. दैट इज कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम. देन exemptions. Now few standard rate, everything is there, but उसके अलावा what will happen is, we have to give some exemptions to some basic products, some essential products. For that, there is a exemption notification. Everything is taxable except those goods which are getting covered under this exemption notification. So one is exemption notification for goods and another one is exemption for services. जैसे हम स्कूल जाते हैं, we get enrolled under the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and we pursue our studies, we go to colleges. Now, those things are very much essential. You cannot expect that tax will be levied on that because you can't make the education costlier. So the exemption is provided to such services, education, healthcare, agriculture. So those services are also exempted. So exemption can be of two types, exemption of goods and exemption of services. Next is seamless flow of credit. What does this seamless flow of credit mean? That you will get the credit continuously. Whatever a supplier is charging earlier, like how we had understood very deeply in the previous session, when the supplier was a manufacturer, he will charge excise duty and he will give it to me and I cannot get that credit. So there was no seamless flow of credit, but under GST, there is a seamless flow of credit. The same manufacturer, if he charges me GST, I am not a manufacturer, but still I can claim that credit of the GST which is charged by the manufacturer. So that is a example of seamless flow of credit, and this chain continues. Once the wholesaler receives it, he gives it to the distributor. Distributor will again flow that credit, take the credit and pass on the credit to the retailer. So that chain continues. There is a seamless flow of credit. Now, how does this flow of credit work? We'll understand through a good diagram. CGST, I have purchased something, on that the vendor has charged me CGST, correct? So once he charges CGST, that comes to me as a credit, correct? So that is called as CGST, Central Goods and Service Tax. ITC would mean input tax credit. Okay, so once I purchase something and I fulfill the conditions, once I satisfy all the conditions, then the credit comes to me in my credit ledger, that is called as CGST ITC ledger. What can I do with this CGST ITC ledger? I can utilize for payment of my output tax of CGST, and then even if something is still left out. Okay, so ITC, it's like a bucket full of water you have. You can use it for offsetting your liability. What kind of liability? You will have three types of liabilities, right? CGST, SGST, and IGST. So you can utilize this for offloading your CGST. आपका पास जो है एक जग भर के पानी है, उसमें CGST का क्रेडिट है. आप उसको किसके लिए यूटिलाइज कर सकते हो? आपका किसी और दूसरे बर्तन में खाली कर सकते हो जहां पे आपका CGST का लायबिलिटी हो. फिर भी कुछ बचता है तो फिर आप IGST का लायबिलिटी के लिए यूज कर सकते हो. So first you will utilize all of your input tax credit of CGST with your liability of CGST, and anything which is left out you will use it for any kind of liability of IGST. Next is you have another bucket of SGST credit. Till now you had each of these are separate buckets. You can't mix all of them together. CGST bucket is separate, SGST bucket is separate, IGST bucket is separate. Each of them have different properties and different qualities. Now, if I have SGST credit, I will take that credit and utilize for payment of a same with the same. So I will utilize SGST credit with payment of SGST liability. Anything which is left out, I will utilize towards my IGST liability. Same like what I did for CGST. And then the last bucket is the IGST bucket. Any kind of IGST credit which I have, I can utilize again with the like. So I can utilize with the IGST first, and then anything which is left over, I can utilize with the CGST or with the SGST in any manner. Okay, understood this chart? Any queries with this credit? Because this is a basis. VAT, CST are production based? No, VAT and CST was not production based. It was sale based, Hardik. So any kind of sale when you used to do, that time you used to charge VAT or CST. Yeah, just some few people asking to explain one more. So whatever credits you have, it is like having a bonus in your hand or having a benefit in your hand. Now that benefit, what will you do with it? Now, if you have some cash, what will you do? You will deposit in your bank. Similar to that, whenever you purchase something, the supplier will charge in his invoice value of your product, 100 rupees. He will charge taxes. He will charge two types of taxes, CGST and SGST. So when you make the payment to your vendor, you will make payment of the product and payment of the taxes also. Now we said that in GST there is seamless flow of credit, which means the taxes what you have paid on your purchases, that will be available to you as a credit. Okay, so it will be available to you on your GST portal, which is called as a electronic credit ledger. Now this electronic credit ledger will be of three types. One is CGST credit, SGST credit, and IGST credit. All CGST credit, you can use it, right? What credit ka rakh ke karoge kya? What will you do with the credit which is lying there? You have to utilize it, right? So you can utilize that credit. First, there is condition. You cannot use it globally. Your CGST credit, you have to utilize for your CGST liability. So when you sell something, you are collecting from the customer, right? And in your invoice, if you are charging CGST and SGST, that means it is your liability to pay. Now, this liability you can pay from the credit of the CGST. And from the credit, once you have utilized your CGST, if something is left over, that you can utilize for payment of IGST. And then SGST also same, you can utilize for SGST liability, then with the IGST. But in case of a IGST credit, it is a integrated tax. So then you can utilize for any of your IGST liability and then utilize with your liability of CGST or SGST in any order. Okay, we'll take some numbers and understand this. Yeah, seamless flow of credit. I'll give you the example, Santan. If we purchase from Himachal Pradesh, yes, we have SGST credit of Himachal Pradesh, but sell in Punjab. Can we set off that ITC of HP SGST? Yes, you can set off. The SGST credit will be this. In your case, it is Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh credit you can utilize with the Himachal Pradesh liability. If you do not have any Himachal Pradesh liability, you have a IGST liability because you're selling outside the state. You can utilize the SGST Himachal Pradesh credit with your IGST. Clear, Anirudh? What is the full form of SAC? SAC would mean Service Accounting Code. We'll go through the flow of credit, understand it with the help of an example. I'll be sharing an Excel sheet. Yes. Okay. Now there is a supply of goods between a person to another person. Now Rahul Dravid, supply within the state by Rahul Dravid to Anil Kumble, both are within Karnataka. Okay, we know that both are in Karnataka. Now he is supplying a product. The value of the supply is 10,000 rupees. On that, he will charge CGST and SGST. Why CGST and SGST? First of all, why not IGST? Same state, it is intrastate supply, correct. It is intrastate supply, so he will charge CGST and CGST and SGST. So he's charging CGST and SGST of 9%. Assume the rate of GST rate for this product is at 18%. Now total price charge is 11,800. This is the liability what he is paying. Who Rahul Dravid is paying. He is not utilizing any credit. He does not have any credit. He is utilizing nil. So he's paying this taxes. So CGST 900 rupees, SGST 900 rupees. CGST will go to the central government's revenue and 900 will go to the Karnataka government's revenue. Okay. Now after that, what happens? Anil Kumble, Rahul Dravid has supplied to Anil Kumble. Now, Anil Kumble will not keep things with him. He will also supply it further, right? So he will supply it to, say he found a customer. He couldn't find any customer in Karnataka, but he found a customer outside Karnataka. So he found a customer in Delhi. So he sold this goods to Delhi. So value of supply is 12,000 rupees. Anil Kumble sells it to Virendra Sehwag at 12,000 rupees. 12,000 rupees. He is making a interstate transaction, right, from Karnataka to Delhi. So he will charge IGST on 12,000 rupees. He will charge 18%, right? Now, one thing to note is GST is charged always on the value of your supply. At what value you are selling, on that GST is payable. So I am supplying, Anil Kumble is supplying to Sehwag. So he is charging a price of 12,000. GST will be on that 12,000 at 18%. Okay. Now in this case, what is happening? 2,160 is payable by him, but he has already paid some taxation when he purchased from Anil Kumble, and Anil Kumble has charged him CGST and SGST. Now my liability is IGST. What did we see in that flow chart? That if you have any credit of CGST, in this case, what credit do I have? I have credit of CGST, I have credit of SGST. I do not have credit of IGST. So the credit of SGST can be utilized first with any CGST. But in this case, I do not have any CGST liability. I have IGST liability. So I will utilize CGST with CGST first, but there's nothing. Then I can utilize CGST with IGST. So credit of CGST is utilized here. And then credit of SGST is also utilized, because credit of SGST can be utilized with any liability of SGST, and anything remaining can be utilized for IGST. In this case also, SGST liability is 0. I have not made any intrastate supply. So credit of SGST is 900 rupees. This much of credit is being utilized. Balance is payable to the government, because how much credit I can utilize, I will utilize that. Balance I will pay to the government. Okay. This 900 rupees, 360 rupees is payable to the government. So this 360 straight away goes to central government. Why? Because this is a IGST liability. Now, when I pay this IGST, I've utilized 900 of CGST, 900 of SGST. So what happens? The integrated tax is designed in such a manner that it will collect the taxes from which state you are claiming the credit. So for paying IGST, you are utilizing the SGST. So the IGST system will take back from the Karnataka government 900 rupees, and it will pay to the government, to the central government. So this 900 will be taken from the Karnataka government and be given to the central government. Okay. So, and this 360 I'm paying by cash, this will directly go to the central government. Remember, CGST and IGST both goes to the central government. So this is being paid here. Now what happens again? Anil Kumble is not keeping quiet. He is again selling it to Ishant Sharma, who is also in Delhi. So Ishant, he's supplying it to Ishant Sharma. The value of supply is 14,400. He is charging CGST at 9% and SGST is 9%. Again, he is making an intrastate supply, so he will charge CGST and SGST. Now his CGST payable is 1,296, which is this liability. Now credit, does he have credit of any CGST or SGST? No, he is purchased from Sehwag and he is charged him IGST of 2,160. So he has a credit of 2,160. He will utilize that credit for payment of CGST first, and then SGST of 1,296 is payable, that he will pay. How? Through the credit of IGST. How much is the credit of IGST as? He had 2,160. Out of this 2,160, he is utilized 1,296. So balance kitna bachcha? Balance 864. That is what is payable, right? that is utilized to the extent of credit available is utilized. Is there any credit of SGST? No. Had I had that credit, I could have utilized, but there's no credit here. Balance is the SGST which is payable to the government, 432. Now, this understand this step, CGST, I am utilizing the credit of IGST, so I don't have to pay anything because IGST and CGST is both the central government. But when I make SGST payable within Delhi, I'm utilizing credit of IGST. So from the central government's balance, it will get transferred to the respective state government. In this case, it is Delhi government. So from CGST credit, that amount flows to the SGST of Delhi, and this 432, which I'm paying now, this will also directly go to the government of Delhi. So the total taxes, what is payable is 1296C. Ultimately, on the end sale, SGST payable was 1296 and CGST payable was 1296. That is ultimately going to the respective government. So 1296 goes to the central government and 1296 goes to the state government. That is how the credit mechanism works. So any credit, how you utilize, that's very important. Yes, Karnataka didn't earn anything. Yes, because it had to give back the credit to the IGST. So it happens that one transaction, once it happens, it is allocated to one government. Once the credit passes on, then it goes back to the other government. So that's the reason at the month end, the settlement happens, not on a daily basis. Can you repeat supply to Ishan Sharma again? Right. So when Sehwag is supplying it to Ishan Sharma, he is making a supply which is a intra-state supply. He is making a supply within the state from Delhi to Delhi. So for him, the value of supply is 14,400. Now, in this 14,400, he will pay CGST and SGST of 9%. Correct? He will pay this. Why? How will he pay this? SGST, he is payable of 1,296, but he has credit of IGST. That much of IGST credit he will utilize. SGST payable again 1,296. So 1,296 in that. Credit, what is left over after payment of CGST is what I will offset. Balance will be payable to the government. Only on the value addition of 200, you can't say actually there's a value addition of 200, right? Because you have to see how much is the value you're supplying and how much is the GST you're charging. So you will charge full GST, but the credit, whatever you have, you will utilize. That is how you are indirectly paying only on the value addition. If IGST credits are used, then central government is debited. Yes, if SGST is credited, then central state government are debited. Correct. Ultimately, customer pay it. Yes, the GST system is like that ultimately the customer will pay the taxes. He will not get any credit on that. In case we have ITC of GST, first utilized for payment of tax is similar in nature than others. If any balance remain, am I correct? Not clear with your question, Avinash. What is UTGST, Mohammed Sakrin? UTGST is called as Union Territory Goods and Services Tax. So like how we have a state, in a state, SGST and CGST is payable. Similarly, if you make any intrastate sale within one union territory, then you will pay UT GST and CGST. Now we have net balance of CGST. Can we utilize that for SGST? Yeah, that is the catch in that presentation, which is very important. So we have CGST, we have SGST. CGST you can utilize for credit of any kind of CGST, but credit of CGST you can utilize for any liability of CGST, then with IGST, but you cannot utilize this credit with your SGST liability. So if you have any SGST liability, this cannot be utilized from the CGST credit. Again, CGST liability cannot be utilized from the SGST credit. Cross utilization of credit between C and S is not possible. Is there any date of expiry of input tax credit? Yes, you cannot take the credit and not avail it. You have to avail the credit within a specified time period. So if somebody is giving you an invoice, you have to account it and claim it in your GST returns within a specified point of time. That is, for this year, you can claim it this year. And if you missed out to claim it in any of these years, any of the months of this year, you can claim it by the 30th November of the subsequent year, which means by for 23-24, you can claim it for the financial year 1st April 2023 to 31st March 2024. You can claim it even now up to 30th November. So once you claim it on time, then there is no expiry. If you don't claim it on time, then the expiry will start it. So, but if you claim it and say you've not made any sales, it will be lying in your credit ledger. Yes, it will still be lying in my credit ledger. Very good question. One person is asking, sir, what if I do a supply within the state, but to a SEZ area? So even if you make any supply SEZ area, it is treated as a export service. SEZ is within the same state, but SEZ gets special privileges. So SEZ is treated as a separate territory outside India. So any supply you make to a SEZ, it is a zero rated supply. You don't have to pay any GST on that. We cannot settle CGST with SGST. You can, not the credit, you can utilize the CGST with the IGST liability. Credit you cannot set off. Can duty GST used for other GST? No. Like how you cannot utilize SGST or anything else. Like SGST you can utilize for SGST, then with IGST. Similarly, UT GST. So you have to think of UT GST as equivalent to the SGST. SGST is for a state, UT is for a union territory. So you can utilize the UT GST. So when actually GST amount credited to the government account, when GST paid by manufacturer or when subsequent retailers adjusting ITC of CGST, SGST, again, payment of liability. Not clear with your question. Is SEZ special economic zone? Yes, it is a special economic zone. Input, how do we claim? We have a separate chapter of input tax credit, Vinuta. We will discuss that. So for now, you understand that if somebody is giving you an invoice, you can claim that credit in your electronic filing your returns. In your monthly returns, you can claim that that is my credit. Once you do that, the credit will be available to you. Yeah, Sai Kiran, yes, please. ask your question.
Sir, my question is actually when manufacturer is making payment for CGST, SGST, he will pay it. Subsequently, when the trader is getting ITC, he is adjusting, setting up that liability against his, he is setting up that ITC against his liability. My doubt is when the amount goes to government at the time of manufacturing payment, or when ITC is set up, when the amount goes to consolidated fund of India. That is my doubt, sir.
So this keeps happening because once you purchase something, supplier is charging CGST, SGST, and you will charge again CGST and SGST, so that balance goes on continuously. There's no completeness. It will keep going on month. Once they will pay, once they will return the money also.
So whenever fund is balance is kept in ITC, it will not go to government fund. It will be with him only. No? Only when ITC is adjusted only, it will go to government account.
Correct. Once you offset it, then it will go to the government account.
Until then, it will not go.
Correct.
Okay. So.
Okay, so that's how the flow of credit works. Now, what are the other frameworks of GST in India? That all the states, everybody will have one common portal. All the states across India, they will use one common portal to do their compliance, to apply for registration, to file your returns, to file your refund application, to file any appeal. All of this will happen on one common portal, which is called as gst.gov.in. But under VAT, earlier, each state government used to have different portals. But under GST, they have consolidated and made only one portal, which is called as gst.gov.in. Tambeshwari, can we explain against point number 3? Point number 3. Third point is the IGST credit. So IGST credit you can utilize for payment of your IGST liability, and if something is left out, you can use it for payment of CGST or SGST. That is what we are seeing. Okay, so for filing of returns and claiming the credit, everything happens online. So there's a common portal called gst.gov.in, and then you have a separate module, separate website for raising the e-way bill. What is the e-way bill? For any movement of goods, we have to raise an invoice and we have to raise a e-way bill also, so that everything is getting tracked real-time basis. So if you're moving any goods, mind my words, I'm telling only goods. If you're making any supply, should you raise e-way bill? Inamrita, is my voice clear now? Be nice. E-way bill is like recording of movement of goods. When you are transporting any goods from one place to another, that has to be recorded on a portal called as ewaybill.gov.in. On that portal, once you mention ewaybill gst.gov.in, once you mention the supplier's GSTI number, receiver's GSTI number, and mention the distance, it will generate a e-way bill, so that it will have reference of your invoices and things. So on the way, when the transportation happens, the check post officer can call for inspection saying that, okay, I have this invoice. and this is what is there in your e-way bill. These two are not matching. So I will take control of your goods because you're doing illegal activity. That is what is called as e-way bill. So the main object of e-way bill is saying that you might have raised bill for 100 kgs, but you're paying GST of only 20 kgs. And in the e-way bill, if you mentioned 100 kgs, it means you're raising a wrong invoice. You raised an invoice for only 20 kgs, but the GST is payable on 100 kgs. That's the reason e-way bill helps to detect any kind of a fraudulent activities in the case of transportation of goods. Okay, and then first was gst.gov.in, second was e-way bill gst.gov.in, third invoice registration portal. You have something called as a e-way bill, and third thing is called as e-invoicing, wherein you can raise a invoice on a real-time basis. Generally, how we file the returns, we are filing return in a manner that I will do all my sales for 1 month and I will upload it on my GST at the month end. Okay, but till then lot of things can happen. That's the reason people who are having a threshold above some limit, that limit is 5 crore rupees. If you are having turnover above 5 crore rupees, you have to raise an invoice and get an instant number from the portal on this invoice registration portal. So you have to mention your customer name, you have to mention your invoice number, you have to mention your amount, and a e-invoice gets generated, which means what? Once you raise an invoice, you cannot make any changes to it. That is there in the e-invoicing portal. Ten crore turnover that has got reduced to a 5 crore turnover. I think you will see in the amendments that that's got reduced to 5 crores. Mahi, in that Excel sheet, last offset 1296. How is it possible? I will just share the screen. Look into this. $1,296 is my output tax of SGST, which is payable. Now, in this, I have credit of IGST. How much credit of IGST did I have actually? I had credit of 2,160. From that 2,160, I have utilized for my CGST payable 1,296. Balance, what is left out is 864 rupees. Clear with this? And balance 432 is payable. I've paid that. I will pay to the, since it's a CGST, SGST transaction, I'll pay to the directly to the state government. And state government will get the credit which I've utilized for the transaction for IGST. They'll convert that IGST credit to the SGST credit and give 864 rupees to his state. E-way bill is compulsory for the states. Even within the states, it is compulsory. So anything of movement of goods which are doing with beyond 50 kilometers, you have to raise a e-way bill. 2160 मन्नू कैसे आया है? उसके पहले का ट्रांजैक्शन आप देखेंगे तो अनिल कुंबले ने सेवाग को बेचा. So when Anil Kumble has sold to Sevak, he has charged 2,160. So that 2,160 is the credit to me. What happens if e-way bill is generated and fail to upload GST sales? There'll be a mismatch. You have to justify why you have raised that e-way bill. Are there any goods on which there is only CGST and no SGST? Or are there any goods on which there is only SGST but no CGST? No, there are no such goods. You will have both the taxes going around, that you will pay CGST and SGST both. Goods purchased amount, yeah. E-way bill, there are two limits, that you have to be cross one certain threshold kilometer limit, and the value limit also, that if you cross 50,000 rupees, only then you need to raise a e-way bill. When e-way bill is raised, e-way bill is issued before movement of the goods. By we uploading sales and purchases, then purchase input is arise known how it's claimed. No. So you will upload purchases based on the supplier sale, right? Now sale is yours, so you'll just upload the sales, but input tax credit, whatever purchases you make, the supplier is selling to you and you are purchasing. So based on the supplier's records, input tax credit will come to you. Sir, I have IGST credit and I don't have any liability in IGST. Yes. So I can use for credit for CGST or SGST. Yes, you can utilize both for CGST or SGST in any order you can utilize. Okay, let's proceed further. It's like when uploading seller side input, then only credit no. Correct. Once the seller side uploads the details, only then credit will be known. There is something called as a system of GSTR2B. We will understand that when we are doing input tax credit. Why can't we set off CGST and SGST? Because the system is made in such a way that any credit of CGST, the central government's credit, cannot be utilized with SGST. There's no logic. That's the design what they have made it, that you cannot offset your CGST with SGST, and SGST you cannot utilize with CGST. Okay. So now moving ahead, we understood the GST portal. Now we have something called as a GSP and ASP. What is this GSP and ASP? Now we may have lot of data, right? Like if you have 10 sales, 20 sales, you can manually enter it. If you have 100 sales, 200 sales, software can use it. If you have many sales, 1,000, 2,000 sales, even the software cannot use it. You need to have an integration with the GST portal directly. That integration cannot be given off to everybody. So there are some specified people who are called as GST Suvidha providers. So this GST Suvidha providers help designing, making the user interface easy so that you don't have to struggle with the GST portal. They will have their own connectivity with the GST portal, and whatever dashboard or some simple manner they show you, in that you enter your details, that will go to the GST portal. Okay, because if you have huge volume of data, you cannot enter it manually, you cannot use Excel. Whatever is your system, that has to get integrated. So this GST providers, GST Suvidha providers have access to the GST portal. They will help you to enter the data manner in an encrypted manner so that it gets uploaded on the portal. And then below GSPs, you have ASPs. ASPs means application service providers. So they will be acting as a bridge between GST customer. So first is portal. Portal say access is for GSP. GSP gives access to ASPs, and from ASPs to all our service providers. So if your transaction is less, you can definitely enter in your GST portal. If your transaction is more, you have to go through the DSPs and ASPs. Then we have compensation cess. So initially, Ashwin Patel, is my voice clear now? I think I've been moving. That's the reason. I'll try not to move then. So what happens is initially a lot of losses were happening to the state because the states anticipated then when we are moving from the VAT regime to the GST regime. Under VAT, our collection used to be high. Now you're giving a lot of credit under GST, so we may be making loss. Then the government said, okay, we will impose in addition to GST something called as a compensation cess. On specified products, we have to pay GST. Like while you buy car, you have to pay 28% GST. Either CGST 14%, SGST 14%, or IGST of straight 28%. Then you also have to pay something apart from that called as a compensation cess. On car, you pay around 12%. On tobacco products, you pay some taxes. So on specified high-end products or sin products, additional tax is levied, which is called as compensation cess. Okay, now this will be levied only up to 31st March 2016, right? Because from 17 to 16, 9 years will get over, you are good enough. So it is only as a system because GST has come in. Then this is very important. Tax on goods and services except to the levy. So GST, one of the feature is taxes is on goods and services. Exception to levy of GST is also there. Generally, GST is levied on all goods and services, but on specified goods, it is exempted. Tax on goods and services, exception to the levy. So on all supply of goods and services, GST is levied, except on the following products, which is alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption is outside the purview of GST. What is levied on that? On a person who is drinking, government gets the major revenue. So that's why the state excise still continues. It is not brought under GST. So alcoholic liquor for human consumption, on this state excise and VAT is still levied. Whether VAT is completely gone, sir, you said everything is gone. Yes, I said everything is gone, but these are the exceptions on which VAT, central excise still is being continued. Now they have two types of excise. One is state excise, one is central excise. On alcoholic liquor for human consumption, state excise is levied, not the central excise. Okay, so on alcoholic for liquor for human consumption, two types of taxes are levied. One is state level excise and VAT. Second is in terms of 5 petroleum products, which is petroleum, crude, diesel, petrol, air turbine fuel, and natural gas. On this also GST is not levied. What is levied? Central excise duty and VAT is levied. So that's why if you see the central government keeps control of the petroleum products because they import the petrol from Arabian countries and then they get it to India and they charge central excise duty. So central excise duty is applicable on 5 petroleum products plus VAT. On tobacco, central excise duty and GST both are levied. On opium, Indian hemp and narcotic drugs, what is levied? State excise and GST. And then on immovable property, there is no GST. After 31(3)(2)(1), compensation will not be levied. Yes, as of today, it will not be levied. But later on, if they want to extend it, they can extend it because already compensation cess was supposed to be there for only 5 years from when GST came in, but they have crossed that limit. Every year they're postponing the date of cancellation, so it will still be there. Give some examples for immovable property. You're buying any kind of land. Okay, you're buying kind of any site. That's a immovable property. So on immovable property, there is no GST. Immovable property, which is specifically land, on that GST is not there. Nowadays, VAT is not there. After GST, VAT is not there, but only on these exceptional products, VAT is still continuing. What purpose compensation cess is used? Suggest Ramya, it's a compensation for the loss of the revenue to the government. That compensation cess is levied and it is going to that respective state. What is CST in second point? CST, it is equivalent to the VAT. So if you are doing any kind of sale, like in GST, how we have intrastate supply, interstate supply. Similarly, under the pre-GST regime, if you're making any intrastate supply, you will pay VAT. If you are making any interstate supply, then you will levy GST. And pre-GST, it was VAT for intrastate and CST for interstate. Like how you have CGST, SGST now for intrastate and IGST for interstate. Similarly, prior to this, if you are under the old regime and on these 5 petroleum products, you will pay central excise duty and VAT if you're making intrastate supply. You will pay CGST, CST if you're making any interstate supply. Yes, somebody's raised a hand. Now you can ask your questions. Yes, Sai Kumar, what is your question?
Sir, the GST compensation cess is distributed to all the states, or because GST is last to manufacturing states, and since GST is based on consumption basis, now only consumption states are getting more GST. Manufacturing states are getting less GST.
Correct.
Whether compensation cess to manufacturing states only or to all states?
So they have given their own report saying that what was their revenue prior to GST and what is the revenue they are earning in GST. Based on that, each state is getting the compensation cess.
But nothing to do with this manufacturing or consumption.
Mostly it will be with manufacturing, because earlier they can show that we were manufacturing, so our taxes was high. Now, because of being a consumption state, our taxes are reduced.
Okay, sir.
Petroleum products doesn't come under GST. You're right. So on these 5 petroleum products, we are not saying that GST is applicable. So on alcoholic liquor for human consumption and 5 petroleum products, GST doesn't arise. So GST arises only on tobacco and opium, Indian hemp, and narcotic drugs. Opium is a kind of a drugs. Okay, so opium, Indian hemp, and narcotic drugs are kind of a drugs which is restricted, but once it is used for some medicinal purposes, on that central excise, state excise, and GST is levied. GST is charged on under construction building. Yes. Why is GST charged under construction building when there is also immovable property? Right. Good question. So when you are constructing a building, okay, what is immovable property? There are various forms of immovable property. One is land, one is building, one is standing trees, one is growing crops. So many kinds of immobile property is there. But the GST on immobile property of land is excluded. Other than land, any other immobile property gets chargeable. So when you are going into a agreement with a builder today is giving you bricks, he's giving you cement, he's giving you stone, he's giving you wood. He's not giving you to the building at all directly, right? He will take some time, then he will give you. So he is supplying this goods in a build-up format. Till he gives that building, till he completes the building, it is still goods itself. But he is putting his labor and putting so much of efforts that you sit at your place, you give me the money, the building will be ready. So it's a service. It's a service because it is under construction. If it is constructed, your building is already there, and then you're buying, then you're right, it's an immobile property, it's a land. But till that thing happens, still it is a not constructed building, it's a service. Clear, Tejasvi? What is aviation turbine fuel? जब हम flight में जाते हैं, तब the fuel what is used there is called as a aviation turbine fuel. Sure, Preeti. Let me know again if it is fluctuating. I think now the problem of fluctuation is gone. Okay, now let's proceed further. But you understand these things, which is very important, that on what taxes is levied. On alcoholic liquor and for human consumption, state excise and VAT is levied, not central excise. If you just mention excise, the examiner will not know. So you have to mention exactly state excise and VAT. On 5 petroleum products, central excise duty and VAT or GST, VAT or CST. On tobacco products, central excise duty plus GST. On opium, Indian hemp and narcotic drugs, state excise and GST. And on immobile property, there is no GST. Now, this chart is like a kind of giving you the what are the advantages. This is a very self-explanatory chart. I don't want to just tell theory. You could go through this, and it is only giving you benefits of the GST. Immobile property, for example, Vinuta, is land, buildings, all of that is immobile property. Please explain ASP. ASP is application service provider, wherein he builds some modules, he builds some softwares so that it becomes easy for you to enter your transactions. So if you have Tally, now from Tally, all the sales is recorded. From Tally, some transactions has to go to the GST portal. You cannot import directly from the Tally, there's no handshake that Tally data goes to your from to a GST portal. So ASP will develop some softwares and make that as a product wherein you enter all your sales over there that gets captured in the system. So that construction, that development of the software is done by ASPs. GSP, GST Suvidha providers. Under construction building, yes, under construction building is service. Constructed building is not a service, it's a immobile property. When central excise duty is chargeable on a product, central excise duty is chargeable on manufacturer when you manufacture something. So when you manufacture, state central excise is there on these 5 petroleum products. Only on these 5 petroleum products, when you manufacture something. On tobacco, when you manufacture, only on that central excise is still levied. What will happen if GST applies? Yes, GST will apply because these 5 petroleum products are mentioned that it will be applicable from a future date. So it's not that it is completely out of GST. And once the GST Council decide, they will bring it into GST network. Can manufacturing state and consuming state both have to pay GST? No, only one state have to pay. So it is on the manufacturing side. So once you sell something, once you make a supply, you collect the GST. Let a few percentage of alcohol is used to prepare a sanitizer GST exempt? No. Then that is not used for human consumption, that's for industrial consumption. Will this slides be uploaded? Yes, this will definitely be uploaded. Okay. Now let's get into the constitutional provisions. Okay. So we'll understand the constitutional provisions, why we've understood the scope of GST, that why it took so much time. Firstly, they wanted power. Any law cannot be there in India without flowing from the constitution. So constitution gives powers to the, one is central government, one is state government, and the local government. So the government gets the power. If a service tax was to be levied, was it levied by the state government or by the central government? Correct. Central government. So service tax was levied by the central government. Can state government levy that same service tax, saying that no, some service providers are there in my city, on that I also want to collect service tax? Can they do it? They cannot do it because it is a purview of the central government. It is there under the center list. So Schedule 7 is that 7 schedule of the constitution, which gave saying that, okay, what all kinds of nature of transactions are there on which central government can levy the taxes, and what are all the transactions on which state government can levy taxes. That's why VAT was a tax on a intrastate supply, which was levied by the state government. Central government cannot come and say that no, this sales is happening in India, so I will levy tax. They cannot do it because it's there on the state list. So the Indian government is specifically divided into union government, state government, and local government. Each of these governments had that exclusive powers under the constitution. Only what is there they could levy, what is not there they could not have levied. Now, central service tax was under the central government's purview. VAT was under the state purview. Now, these two laws were going in parallel. Central excise was again with the central government, and all the VAT local taxes was with the state government. Now, they had to bring in a alignment and say that make a law in such a way that on one transaction, both center and state will collect taxes. Was there any law? There was no law in that. That's where the constitution has to be amended. Constitution में amendment जरूरी था ताकि जो टैक्स आज हम पे कर रहे हैं, जो एक संतुलन में पे कर रहे हैं कि एक ट्रांजैक्शन में सेंटर को भी टैक्स जाता है और स्टेट को भी टैक्स जाता है, वो कैसे जाता है? वो इस तरह से जाता है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में अभी अमेंड कर दिया गया है कि आप एक ट्रांजैक्शन पे कलेक्ट कर सकते हो. इस वजह से क्या होता है, टैक्सेस गवर्नमेंट को एक ही ट्रांजैक्शन पे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को भी मिलता है आधा और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को भी आधा रुपया मिलता है. ठीक है. वो अमेंडमेंट कैसे किया, कौन से सेक्शन है, कौन से आर्टिकल्स है? जैसे हम एक्ट में सेक्शंस बोलते हैं, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में क्या होता है, सेक्शंस नहीं होते हैं, आर्टिकल्स होते हैं. तो वो आर्टिकल्स देखेंगे हम. ठीक है. टिल नाउ एनी क्वेश्चंस? एवरीथिंग इज क्लियर? Sir, in case of these exemptions from GST, input tax credit is applicable or no? In case of exemption from GST, input tax credit will not be available to you. So input tax credit is available when you purchase something and sell something on which tax is payable. But in case of an exempt supply, you are not paying any tax, so input tax credit will not be available to you. Awesome. ठीक है. So this is the broad framework of the government. Now let's get into the important provisions of under Constitution. First article what we will read is Article 265. We said that any taxes which is levied by the state government cannot be levied by the central. All of that comes from where? It comes from Article 265. Article 265 says that it prohibits any arbitrarily tax collection. It says that simple no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of the law. So you should have the power, you should have the authority, only then you can do it. अगर आपके घर में गाड़ी है तो क्या आप चला सकते हो? You know to drive, but your parents should give you the authority and permission to drive, right? Similarly, you have resources available, you have everything, but you should have the authority, right? You should have a driving license, you should have crossed the age of 18 years, only then your parents will give you a vehicle to drive, right? वैसे ही no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of the law. If the government, if the municipality, if any authority wants to collect any taxes, it shall be only by the authority of the law. The authority of law flows from the Constitution. From the Constitution, the authority flows, then the act is made, then based on the act, you can collect the taxes. Okay. In this case of constitutional provision of 265, one of the case went to up to the Supreme Court, wherein in Lord Krishna sugar mills, what happens? Some sugar merchants had to meet some export targets. Okay. In that sugar mills association, they had to, in that vicinity, the sugar merchants had to meet some export targets. In case they get them, only if that is met, they will get that promotion. If there is a shortage of that exports, then what will happen? They had to pay an additional excise duty. Now this was challenged, this was tax was levied. Then the Lord Krishna sugar mill went to the High Court and said that, boss, what are you collecting is incorrect. So then that matter again went to the Supreme Court. Then Supreme Court decided then the government on its own account cannot levy the tax by itself because there was no law to collect additional excise duty. Normal excise duty on manufacturer is fine, but if you don't meet your export targets, there was no such law which was maintained, or there was no such law which was enacted. So this body who did this voluntary was the illegal activity. The government said that the government or any party cannot collect excise duty because there was no authority with them. Second case law is, in case of this, only a case law is not relevant for you. You don't have to remember this case laws, but just to keep the curiosity and how practically Article 265 will work. That's why I'm giving you a practical scenario of the cases which went up to the Supreme Court. In Tunkal versus Samirai Shalai, all the villagers were paying 50 rupees to the headman in place of a custom to render free a day's labor. Okay, so they were paying 50 rupees to the headman in case they had to render free a day's labor. Okay, either they have to give labor service, or if they have to take off, they have to pay rupees 50 as the compensation. So this is equivalent to tax, correct? ये भी लगान की तरह हो गया कि आपको काम नहीं करना है तो आपको 50 रुपए देना पड़ेगा, right? This was in the nature of tax. तो क्या ये 50 रुपीस कलेक्ट करना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है या अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल? इसके लिए कहा गया, the court said in this case said that amount of rupees 50 was like a collection of tax and no law had authorized it, and therefore it is a violated Article 265. जो भी आप पे कर रहे हो या जो हेडमैन कलेक्ट कर रहा है उसके लिए उसके पास अथॉरिटी नहीं था, वो तो जोर जबरदस्ती से ले रहा था. So you cannot get the benefit of that. तो आप जो कलेक्ट करते हो वो इलीगल है, ये डिसाइड किया गया था. What is local government? Local government would mean the local municipality. One is union government, state government, and local government will mean the local municipality body, panchayat body. They are called as the local government. What is levy of tax? Levy of tax means the to collect tax. Now, when do you collect excise duty? When on sale can you collect? No. The levy of excise duty is on manufacturer. So that event on which tax is levied is called as a levy. So what time and what nature of activity you do, that is called as a levy. लॉर्ड कृष्णा केस भावना गर्ग क्या बोल रहा था कि जो भी टैक्सेस शुगर मर्चेंट से कलेक्ट किया जाता था कि आप एक्सपोर्ट टारगेट फुलफिल नहीं करोगे तो आपको कुछ टैक्सेस एक्स्ट्रा देना पड़ेगा, वो चैलेंज किया गया था कि हम तो एक्साइज ड्यूटी भर रहे हैं लेकिन हम एक्सपोर्ट्स फुलफिल नहीं करेंगे तो आप एक्स्ट्रा टैक्सेस कैसे ले रहे हो, ये गलत है। तो उसके लिए कोर्ट ने डिसाइड किया सभी सिचुएशंस को देख के कि आपको एक्स्ट्रा एक्साइज कलेक्ट करने के लिए अथॉरिटी है क्या, आपके पास नहीं है तो फिर आप एक्स्ट्रा एक्साइज ड्यूटी कलेक्ट नहीं कर सकते हो। दैट इज व्हाट इज आर्टिकल 265 बोलता है कि आप कुछ भी एक्स्ट्रा टैक्स नहीं कलेक्ट कर सकते हो अनलेस अथॉरिटी है उसके लिए। अगर अथॉरिटी में है कि आप एक्स्ट्रा कर सकते हो तब आप करेक्ट हो, जब अथॉरिटी है ही नहीं तो आप कलेक्ट नहीं कर सकते हो। Arbitrary matlab it is not fixed, it is not having a rules, it's not logical, that is arbitrary collection. No, VAT and CST you don't have to understand, it's only for your reference. Now we'll get into the constitutional provisions. Before getting into constitutional provisions, let us take a break. So we'll take a break of 10 minutes. Okay, we are taking break at 3:42. We'll get back at 3:52. Yes, Vinuta, you can ask your doubt.
Sir, who all are applicable in a regular and composition scheme?
So everybody who's making a supply can do under regular scheme. Under composition scheme, only there are two kinds of composition scheme. One is for a trader of goods or a manufacturer of goods. A person who's dealing in goods can go for composition, and a person who's, so for him the turnover limit is 1.5 crores, and for composition of services the limit is 50 lakhs. Now in that
only
goods,
50 lakh, no, sir?
only 50 lakhs for services. But
Okay.
restaurant services will get 1.5 crores because that was along with the goods itself they brought in. So for restaurant services up to 1.5 crores, composition scheme is applicable.
Okay. Sir, which one is better, sir? Composition or regular?
So you do not get input tax credit under composition. So if your industry is such that you get lot of credit, then regular is applicable. If you have a case where input tax credit is not available, then composition will be better.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Aditya Singh.
Sir, what will happen if I want to discontinue my business and but ITC is still available with me?
Yeah, nothing will happen. Your ITC will not be available. You cannot get the refund of the ITC. The ITC is lost. You will have to forego that loss.
Thank you, sir.
Break है सर अभी. So we were discussing on the basics of constitution, right? Now we'll go to the article specific. First is Article 265, which we have understood, saying that no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of law. Next important thing is on levy. Somebody was asking what is levy. Levy refers to the imposition of a tax when all the taxing ingredients are found to be present in the transaction. When do you say that a levy is triggered? When do you say that levy is a tax authority, a taxation statute is levying tax, is when it is imposing tax by satisfying all the ingredients. What are the ingredients? There should be a taxable event, there should be a tax measure, there should be a rate of tax, and there should be a person who shall pay. So 4 ingredients for any law is important, that should have the ingredients of taxation, which is first is a taxable event, the rate of tax, and the person who should pay the tax should be clearly spelled out. So if these things are there, then it is said that there is an authority. Then next article to be dwelled upon is Article 245. So these articles, what I'm mentioning, are important. That's why we are covering these articles in detail. Article 245 says that the Parliament shall make laws for the whole or any part of India, and the legislature of a state shall make laws for the whole or any part of the respective state. So Parliament will make laws for the whole of India, and the legislature of a state will make laws with respect to that particular state. Okay, so state government will make laws for that state, and central government will make laws for whole of India. No law made by the Parliament will be invalidated due to extraterritorial operations. Say any law has been made, it will not be treated as invalid. It cannot be ruled out that the law made is invalid because it is extraterritorial, which means extraterritorial power also will be allowed, and because of that extraterritorial jurisdiction, the law will not be said that it is illegal. What are those examples? Like TDS. When we make any foreign payments, we have to deduct TDS. One can say that when you're making payment outside India, how could Indian government levy tax? But that is permitted because the government has objective to control that whatever foreign payments are happening. That is the reason. So even though it is actually extraterritorial, but the intention for that is different. And another instances when you import anything, right? On through customs, or you import any services, then you have to still pay input. You have to pay IGST on your imports. There also there could be a question of extraterritorial, but because of that, the law will not be treated as in. It implies that no, that's the thing. Then Article 246 says that Article 246 provides authority to union and state government for levying tax. So the Article 246 is the main article which says that it has a schedule, which is the 7th schedule. And in that schedule, they have 3 lists, list 1, list 2, and list 3, in which central government will have power to tax under list 1. State government will have power to those articles, those transactions, or those objects which will be under list 2 will be levied by the state, and list 3 is the concurrent list. Okay, so we know that there are 3 lists. Now you think GST will come under which list? Yes, Divya, what is your question? Mithun, what is your question?
Sir, your presentation is not showing in the screen.
I'll just share it. Thank you.
Screen is not shared.
You are saying GST will come under union list. You are saying it will come under the concurrent list. Okay. Okay. But actually what happens is concurrent list is where when both of them have the power, but the supremacy is for the central government. So even if it is under concurrent list, it is mostly controlled by the central government. So it cannot come either under the concurrent list. Definitely it cannot come under the state list because even central government wants to levy the tax, right? And it cannot come only under the central list because it cannot come only under the union list because state government also wants the power to tax the GST transactions. So then what happened? That was the main reason that this structure which is there, this was there even before the constitutional amendment. So that's the reason a constitutional amendment was required, wherein a new article had to come in and give way for the GST, wherein that power to levy GST would be given both to the center and state. That's when Article 246A came in through the 101st Constitutional Amendment. This Article 246A came in, and they said in this article, we'll read that article, it gave power, joint power to the center and state. Concurrent list, you may get confused. Why not in a concurrent list? Concurrent list is not like a joint power. Concurrent list is list where central will levy something, state will levy something, but not as an organized manner like how Article 246A gave power that both center and state will levy tax on the same transaction. Okay, that's the reason the amendment was required and Article 246A came in to give power to levy GST. Now, what happened in this 101st Amendment Act is there was no integration in earlier taxes resulting in cascading effect. There was therefore a new law to integrate all the taxes. Of course, we have seen the disadvantages of cascading effects and things. That's where this new article came in. What is this 101st Amendment Act going to bring in? It is giving concurrent powers to the Parliament and the state governments to make laws, which means on a transaction, both center and state will have the power to levy. So on an intra-state transaction, any transaction within the state, we can levy the central taxes and the state taxes, both 50-50 goes to the center and the state. Then levy of integrated GST on any interstate transactions. So within the state, central government, state government, 50-50 happy. In case of interstate transaction, will the state who is supplying collect the tax, or the state which is consuming will take the tax? Thus, there will be a fight between these two states. That's why the central government said, we will levy a integrated GST on a interstate transaction. So you both states don't fight. ठीक है, तो एक स्टेट और दूसरे स्टेट में लड़ाई हो जाएगी अगर मैं इंटरस्टेट ट्रांजैक्शन पे भी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को पावर देता हूं. तो इसीलिए लड़ाई बंद करने के लिए इंटरस्टेट ट्रांजैक्शन पे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को कुछ भी रेवेन्यू नहीं मिलेगा. इंटरस्टेट ट्रांजैक्शन में इंटीग्रेटेड टैक्स कलेक्ट किया जाएगा जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को जाएगा, और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगी, जो कंज्यूमिंग स्टेट है उसको एक स्टेट से दूसरे स्टेट को ट्रांसफर करेगी. जैसे हमने देखा था वहां पे कर्नाटका से स्टेट, अपने एग्जांपल में कर्नाटका सेल स्टार्ट हुआ था, लेकिन कर्नाटका को कुछ टैक्स बचा नहीं क्योंकि वो इंटीग्रेटेड में चला गया, और स्टेट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को भी मिला नहीं क्योंकि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने उसे दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट को दे दिया है. राइट, लाइक हाउ वी हैड सीन द एग्जांपल ऑफ सेल फ्रॉम कर्नाटका टू दिल्ली. राइट, फ्रॉम कर्नाटका, the Karnataka government gets the revenue on the first transaction, then that is reversed because it gets converted to a integrated transaction. Then from the integrated also, it doesn't remain with the central government. Integrated taxes will again go to that respective state where the IGST is being utilized to offset against your SGST. So it again gets transferred. So integrated tax is not actually a tax. It's only a platform to transfer the credit from one state to another state. So levying of integrated tax on interstate transactions is one of the features to bypass or to stop or any kind of tough between two states. Then what is the other important aspect of this constitutional amendment? Principle for determining the place of supply. Okay, and when a supply takes place in the course of interstate trade will be formulated by the parliament. So parliament is getting supremacy to decide what is the place of supply in a transaction, because I may say the place of supply is my state. Other state may say it is my state. So they will have a uniform rules to decide what is the place of supply. So if you see the integrated tax, IGST law, it has a specific provision, section 12 and section 12, which is deciding what is the place of supply. Based on the nature of supply, 10 and 11 is for determining place of supply of goods, and 11 and 12, 10 and 11 is for place of supply of goods, and 12 and 13 is for place of supply of services. The principles for determining the place of supply and when a supply takes place in the course of interstate trade shall be formulated by the Parliament. So the central government will make the laws to determine the place of supply and when a supply shall be treated as an interstate supply. Then GST will be levied on all goods or services except alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So this is what is given. Main amendments happen in the constitutional amendment. Sir, when we make a supply to another state, to which government will the tax finally go? It gets converted to IGST, and from IGST it goes converted to the state which utilizes the IGST and gets converted to a SGST. Then again from that state it again flows through. So until and unless it is consumed, that flow still happens. In reality, buyer state benefited, yes, because the consuming state, the consumption state will benefit from this. Now we'll get into the specific articles. There are 3 A series articles. When I say A series articles, it means you had Article 246, you had Article 247. Now we had to bring in something between 246 and 247. We cannot push the articles, right? The articles are already set, so we had to introduce a new article. Okay, so this addition happens through in between addition between 246 and 247 by introducing an article called 246A. Then again 269 and 270 is there. A new article is added in between two called as 269A. What does 246A says is it gives the power to make laws with respect to goods and services jointly to the central government and state government. This is Article 246A. 269A says that the levy and collection of GST on interstate supply and import is to the central government. That is mentioned in Article 269A. And Article 279A gives power to form a special body called as a GST Council, wherein the council will make recommendations. It will have the members and it will have voting for every resolution. That is Article 279A. So these 3 articles are important. We'll get into detail of these 3 articles. First is Article 246A. What does the article say? It says that notwithstanding anything contained in 246 and 254. Mind you, what was 246? 246 was that 7th schedule list, central government, state government, and concurrent list. It says notwithstanding anything. So you have to leave that aside. So it's called as a non-obstant clause. Right? In your income tax also, you would have read that there are various sections which starts with a non-obstant clause, which means when it says notwithstanding anything in 246, you have to leave away 246 and come to 246A to get the right meaning. Notwithstanding anything contained in Article 246 and 254, the Parliament, which is the central government, and subject to clause 2, the legislature of the state, that is the state government, shall have power to make laws with respect to goods and services tax imposed by the union or by the state. So it's saying that in case of one transaction, both Parliament and the state government will have the power to make laws with respect to any kind of a goods or services. So any kind of a intrastate supply will be here. Why? Because Article 246A Part 2 says that the Parliament will have exclusive powers to make laws with respect to goods and services where the supply of goods or services are both take place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. So in case of interstate trade or commerce, who will have the power? The Parliament will have the power. In all other cases, which is other than interstate, that is all intrastate, both center and state will have the power. This is Article 246A. This is the wordings. The gist of this is central and state government shall have power to make laws then centers will have exclusive powers to make laws with respect to GST in case of interstate supply, and in respect of 5 petroleum products, GST provisions are postponed, which means on this 5 petroleum products, GST is not there now, but it is postponed to a future date. From that date, GST will be levied on these 5 petroleum products. Cascading effect, we have understood cascading means tax on tax. In a previous session, we have explained it with numbers. So you will understand what is a cascading effect from the recording of the previous session. Then next article is 246A is over. Now we'll go to 269A. 269A says that the goods and services tax, GST, on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the Government of India, and such tax shall be apportioned between the union and the state. So whatever integrated tax is collected, that will be apportioned between union and the states in the manner as may be provided by the Parliament on the recommendation of the GST Council. So 269A is a new article. It says that any interstate taxes what we are collecting, we will only not keep it, because already when you're making intrastate transactions, central government is getting 50% from all the states. So that is enough for them. Now this integrated taxes we will not keep. What we will do is we will transfer it, and what is left, that we will distribute between the center and state in a decided proportion. Okay, so 269A क्या बोलता है? 269 ये समझाता है कि जब मैंने टैक्सेशन 246A में 50-50% हमने अग्री कर चुके हैं सेंटर और स्टेट, मैं और टैक्सेस नहीं रखूंगा. कौन हूं मैं हूं सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट. मैं क्या करूंगा, आपको सिर्फ क्रेडिट पास ऑन करने के लिए मैं इंटीग्रेटेड टैक्स कलेक्ट करूंगा, और जब स्टेट का क्रेडिट पास ऑन होगा तब मैं इंटीग्रेटेड टैक्स उसको दे दूंगा. और आर्टिकल 269 ये बोलता है कि जो भी टैक्स बचेगा वो हम आपस में बांट लेंगे. ठीक है. For the purpose of this clause, supply of goods or services are both in the course of import of into the territory of India shall be deemed to be a supply of goods in the course of interstate trade or commerce. What does it say? ये सिर्फ ये बोल रहा है कि जब इंपोर्ट करोगे आप विद इन द स्टेट, या फिर पोर्ट आपके स्टेट में है, फिर भी अगर आप इंपोर्ट करते हो तब आपको इंटीग्रेटेड टैक्स भरना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि उससे इंटरस्टेट माना जाएगा. Okay, so whenever you do any transaction of import of goods or import of services, it will always be treated as a interstate transaction. And if it is an integrated transaction, what did we just read from Article 269A1, that in case of an interstate transaction, the taxes will be integrated. In case of import of transactions, it is it's an interstate transaction. On interstate transaction, integrated tax is paid. Okay, that is subclause 1. Then subclause 2 to 4 says that where any amount is collected as IGST and has been used for payment of SGST, correct? IGST is used, now it is collected, now it is used for payment of SGST. It will not form part of the consolidated fund of India, because अगर उसको भी consolidated fund में जाएगा तो फिर वो state government को revenue कहाँ मिलेगा? So IGST, what is being transferred to the respective state, will not form part of the consolidated fund. It will go to that respective state. Then Parliament is empowered to formulate the principles regarding place of supply and when supply of goods or services occurs in the interstate trade or commerce. So Parliament has the exclusive power to make laws. That's the reason integrated taxes, IGST law, majorly consists of interstate transaction, discussion on interstate transactions. And what we understood from this article 269A, it says that GST on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the central government. That is, it will collect as IGST and shall be apportioned between the union and the state in a prescribed manner. Now, import of goods or services into India will always be deemed as in the course of interstate trade or commerce. That is, IGST will be levied on import transactions. Now, take a case that I am in the state of Karnataka. Karnataka has a port. Now, in that port, I'm importing some goods. Now, when I'm importing some goods, should I pay IGST or should I pay CGST and SGST? Correct. Everybody is understood correctly. But even if your movement of goods is happening within the state, like from the port in Mangalore, so it's a coastal city in the Karnataka region. From Mangalore, when I import the goods into Bangalore, it is a intra-state supply, correct? So why should I not pay CGST and SGST? Because it is a import transaction. The goods did not originate at Mangalore. It is a import transaction, but clearance is happening at the port within my state. But it is a import transaction. On that, I will have to pay IGST itself. So that is what is specifically mentioned here, that in case of import of goods into India will always be deemed as to be in the course of interstate trade or commerce, that is IGST will be levied on import transaction. Whether IGST, where IGST used for payment of SGST, such amount will not form part of the consolidated fund. If it is utilized, it will go to the respective state. Whatever is left will become part of the consolidated fund, and from that consolidated fund, distribution between center and state will happen. Parliament is empowered to formulate the principles regarding the place of supply and when supply of goods or services occur in an interstate trade or commerce. Parliament has the power to decide what is the place of supply. That's why 10, 11, 12, 13, these 4 sections decide the place of supply. And when supply of goods or services occurs in an interstate trade or commerce. So it will further decide when the supply will be treated as an interstate trade or commerce. What if I don't import, just buying imported products in the state which they have a port still? So if you are not importing, if somebody else is imported, for him it is a interstate transaction. If you are buying from that person, then it is an intrastate transaction. Yes, you will get this presentation on the BOS portal. Okay. The next section is on, next article is on Article 279A. 279A says something about a GST Council. This was not there before because they didn't have any joint authority, but 279A is a section which empowers the president to constitute a joint forum of center and state, which is called as GST Council. So a joint committee or a joint forum of both center and state will be formed, which will be called as GST Council. आपने सुना होगा न्यूज़ में कि GST Council has made this amendment, GST Council has made this recommendation. So that power to make comes from the Article 279A. First is provisions relating to GST Council came into the force on 12th September 2016. GST कब से आया था? 1st July 2017 से, लेकिन GST Council उसके पहले आ गया because they had to decide lot of things. So GST provisions relating to GST Council came on the 12th September 2016, and the president constituted the GST Council on 15th September 2016. Officially 15 September 2016 को GST Council आ गया है. And who was the chairperson? The Union Finance Minister will be the chairperson. The Union Minister of all the states or the minister who is in charge of the revenue will be the member. Then the minister in charge of finance or taxation or any other member who is nominated by the each state government will become its member. मतलब central government में finance minister एक रहेगा and all the states से एक minister रहेंगे who they will nominate will become the body or the member of the GST Council. GST Council क्या करेगा? It is a constitutional body for making recommendations to the union and state government on issues relating to goods and service tax. So it will make recommendations on the matters of goods and service tax. On what all matters? GST rates, exemptions, principles that govern place of supply, threshold limits, special provisions for certain states, special provisions for special category states, special rates for specified goods for specified periods, that is during natural calamity and disaster. All of this will be recommended by the GST Council. Okay. Now, there's something called as special provisions for special category states. What are this? They are 11 special category states, which is Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand. So these 11 states are called as special category states. इनके लिए special provisions रहेगा. जैसे of this, all the special categories दिया गया था कि you can decide your threshold limit. So only 4 states decided that we will keep a lower threshold limit. Others said that we will keep a higher threshold limit. ठीक है. So because it's a joint committee, right? GST Council is a joint body between the center and state. So respective states have their say, saying that should we have lower threshold or should we have higher threshold. Okay. What is natural calamity? Flood, famine, कुछ भी आ जाता है, that is a natural calamity. Because these states have to be uplifted. Like most of these states are northeastern states, right? तो उनको special और जम्मू एंड कश्मीर का तो आर्टिकल 366 के बाद that gives the special preference. That's why northeast and Jammu and Kashmir states are given special preference. What else is there in Article 279A? It says GST Council shall also recommend the date from when GST will be levied on those 5 petroleum products. So 5 petroleum products जो अभी नहीं है, GST Council will decide and come up with a date when on those 5 petroleum products GST will come in. Then members, 1/2 of the total number of members shall constitute a quorum. To start a meeting, we need minimum number of people. वो minimum number of people को कहते हैं quorum. So half जो members हैं वो present होने पे the meeting can start. Every decision of the GST Council shall be taken at a meeting by a majority of not less than 3/4 of the weighted votes. Weighted vote मतलब एक आदमी का वोट अलग अलग गिना जाता है. 3/4 अगर वो मिल जाएगा तो it's a considered that the meeting is passed or that one item has been passed by the members present and voting in accordance with the following principles, namely the vote of central government का weight 1/3 रहेगा and the votes of all the states put together will be 2/3. Central government का vote का power 1/3 है और state government का power 2/3 है all put together. और अगर कोई भी resolution pass करना है, अगर 75% that is 3/4 majority मिल जाता है, तो then that resolution is passed. Okay, if they want to recommend a rate change, they have to put it in the GST Council. Now, अगर वो rate change का proposal 3/4 of the voting में pass हो जाता है, then that is passed. अगर 3/4 fail हो जाता है, then that is not passed. Next is we have understood these important articles which I have added. Now we'll understand the articles which are already there. Now that is amended to some extent. One is addition of articles, another one is amendment of the articles. All of these amendments happened in the GST 101st Constitution Amendment Act itself. Okay. Next is Article 248, which says that it gives the residuary powers to the Parliament to make the laws. So, which 248 gives power to the Parliament to make laws. Now, this is subject to 246A. मतलब GST का तो आपको पावर आर्टिकल 246A में ही रहेगा. उसके अलावा कुछ चाहिए तो आर्टिकल 248 में Parliament can make laws. Then Article 249 and 250. What does it say? It says that this is also been amended to grant Parliament to make laws in the national interest. Suppose कुछ national interest या in case of emergency हो जाती है, तब central government GST law खुद बना सकती है. The central government can in its own consent make a law only in 2 instances when it is in the national interest, which should be approved by the states, or in case of an emergency, when emergency is declared, then the GST Council may not meet and things like that, then the central government can straight away pass GST laws. Residuary powers is the balance powers. जो balance powers है, that is called as residuary powers. Then Article 268 says that the duties levied by the union but collected and appropriated by the state. One of those duties was medical and toilet preparations. This Article 268 said that central government has the power, but it will be given a portion to the state. Stamp duty is one among them, wherein stamp duty laws are made by the central government but collected by the state government and retained by the state government itself. Excise on medical and toilet preparations was there, which was removed, which means that excise on these medical and toilet preparations, now GST will be levied. Okay, if this was not removed, then GST के लिए power नहीं रहता था. That's why they have removed medical and toilet preparations, and from 1st July, that is when the Constitution Amendment Act was brought in and when the GST law itself had come in, तब से on medical and toilet preparations GST is leviable. Article 270, the taxes levied and distributed between the union and the states. The article provides for distribution of GST between center and the states. So any distribution between the center and state which doesn't go to the respective state, which remains in the consolidated fund of India, gets distributed because of Article 270. Then Article 286 says that restriction as to imposition of tax on the sale or purchase of goods. States have no right to impose GST on interstate supplies, as it will be levied as per 269A. So on interstate supply of goods, state government will not have any say. That's a restriction under 286. Then Article 368 says that 368 has been amended to include 279A. Any changes in the GST Council. Firstly, 368 is on the power of the Parliament to make any changes to the Constitution. अगर कुछ Constitution में amend करना है, तो फिर Article 368 को follow करना पड़ेगा, which says that any changes in the GST Council, अगर आपको Constitution of GST Council, composition, meeting, powers of the GST Council, if any of these things has to be changed, then you will need 2/3 majority of each house of the Parliament, 2/3 of the Lok Sabha, 2/3 of the Rajya Sabha, and then it has to be ratified by half of the states. मतलब फर्स्ट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट लोकसभा राज्यसभा पास करेगा, उसके बाद 50% of the state also has to confirm. Only then you can make any amendment to the Article 279. So a lot of questions here. Example for 249 and 250. So in 250, one of the example is that during Indira Gandhi's regime, there was an emergency which was declared, wherein there was a state of emergency and the state government said that we will not do anything, and the central government had the supremacy over all over India. That is a state of emergency. And in some cases where the states did not, for 249, when the states did not have any kind of a clarity, then they said central government can make laws. That is Article 249, and 250 is in case of emergency. Yeah, these articles I would say it's necessary, Bhavna, because what's happened is in your earlier textbook, if you see compared to that with this, earlier there were no mention of other articles other than 246A, 269A and those 3A series, but now other articles have been included, which means that the examiner will be focusing on these new articles because these were not there before and they've been brought in now. GST does not come under union list, Tejasvi. GST doesn't come under the union list, doesn't come under the central list, doesn't come under the concurrent list. It doesn't come in either of those three lists. It comes through a new article, which is Article 246A. That union list is under 246. GST does not come under 246. GST comes under 246A. Okay. If you have questions, you can ask. Else, let's get into the multiple choice questions. Sir, export of goods comes under Article 246A. No, again, export of goods does not come because 246A deals only with the GST on export. There cannot be levied any taxes, so that does not come under 246A. I think this chapter will be only theoretical. There will not be any practical questions in this. 366 defines GST. You're right. What is ratification? Ratification is that after an event has happened, that is when the central government and state government in both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha has approved it, the states has to confirm, yes, we agree to it. They give their consent post that event. That is called ratification. Customs duty is charged. Yes, customs duty is charged on export on some products, right? They cannot charge customs on products wherever they have to keep some restriction or want to retain that the good should not go out. Their customs duty is levied. Otherwise, it is not levied. That's why it's not there under Article 246A. That is still there under Article 246. Export comes under which article? I'll check and come back. Sure, immediately my PPT is ready. I will immediately send it to the Board of Studies. I hope they upload it immediately. A means what? It means the amendment to the article and new article is brought in. Suppose आपका serial number चल रहा है, you're written a book, right? And you have a series going on 11, 12, 13, 14. Now you 15, 16. Now you have forgotten to write something very important between 13 and 14. What will you do? Will you push all the sections further? No, right? So you will do an amendment between 13 and 14. You'll put a page, call it as 13A and write it there. So that is what is the meaning of A, which means that a new article has been introduced. Important sections are mandatory. These articles are mandatory, which you have to write. And in GST, all sections is not important. Important sections are mandatory. Consolidated fund means that fund which cannot be utilized for payment of taxes or anything. That fund which is utilized for payment of revenue, distribute the revenue to the state government and central government, that is called as consolidated fund. Yes, questions can come from this chapter also. Why not? You can get practical also, but mostly I'm expecting theoretical questions from this chapter. Weightage, we'll see it on the weightage part. Article name, remember, yes, article names are important for you to remember in the exams. Yeah, somebody's raised the hand. Shahid, you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, bro.
Sir, in Article 368, any changes in GST Council will need 2/3 of majority in each House of Parliament and ratification by half of the states. The states means all states.
Correct. All the states. तो जितने भी states हैं उसमें आधे states का ratification मिलना चाहिए.
ठीक है सर.
Okay. Now let's get into the multiple choice question. Before that, constitutional amendments are important. Yes, these constitutional amendments are important. Which article of the Constitution contains the power to make laws with respect to GST? Everyone is giving the correct answer. It is Article 246A. Second question. GST came into force by the Constitutional Amendment Bill. Dash Constitutional Amendment Bill 111, 104, 102 or 122. If you are saying 101, if you are saying B, if you are saying D, so there's a lot of confusion here. Please read through the question. This is a question for CA students. GST came into the force by which constitutional amendment bill? So when you see these numbers, you have to be very careful. Let us go to this chart. So there is a difference between bill and act, right? The GST came into picture by the Constitution 101st Amendment Act. It's not correct. It is 102nd Constitutional Amendment Bill. Okay, bill is 122nd, act is 101st Act. Okay, B. You are saying it is B, but the correct answer is C, because it's a destination based tax which is levied across the nation. So it's a national level tax, not a state level. Even though at state level you collect it, but it's actually for across the states throughout India. So it's a national level tax. Fourth question, India has adopted a dual model of GST where the tax is charged concurrently by the center and states. Therefore, for an intra-state transaction, GST as per GST Act is charged equally as what? If you are saying A, if you are saying B, correct answer is B. Why people are saying A? On an intra-state transaction, what will you levy? You will levy CGST and SGST. When you are making an interstate transaction, you levy only IGST. So always remember, interstate transaction, you will levy IGST. On an intra-state transaction, it will be CGST and SGST. And IGST is always equal to C and S. The uniform policy recommended by the GST Council on e-way bill being to be implemented will be totally, what will it be? What will be the benefits of e-way bill? Right. Everybody is giving a safer answer. It is D. It is both A and B, breaking the barriers and eliminating the check post system. Sixth question. Various taxes levied under different tax were subsumed under GST on the objective of one nation, one tax. However, certain items still continue to be taxed both under the central excise law and the GST, even after the implementation of GST. Find out which items are these. Motor spirit and natural gas, alcoholic liquor for human consumption, tobacco and tobacco products are all of the above. What is the meaning of bottlenecks? Which means that it is a deterrent. It is not helping to implement GST. That is a bottleneck. It's like a hindrance. That's called as bottleneck. Oh my God. Lot of confusions here. B, C, D, all the options have come out. Luckily not A. We are talking about, there are two types of excise. One is central excise, one is state excise. Here the question is on central excise and GST. One is excise and VAT. But here specifically it's a central excise and GST. Correct answer is C. Go back to our learnings, you will find that on tobacco and tobacco products, central excise and GST is levied. On alcoholic liquor for human consumption, state excise. On motor spirit and natural gas, central excise. But on tobacco and tobacco products, central excise and GST. Under model of GST adopted in India, taxes paid on inward supplies made by a registered person is available as input tax credit, which can be utilized for making payment under, as per section 49. The ITC of GST can be utilized for what? Is it CGST only? Is it IGST, then CST, SGST and then IGST, CGST and then IGST? Yeah, mostly D, Divyanshi, you're right. Everybody is giving right answer. CGST can be utilized for making of CGST first and then IGST. Not GST alone, not possible. IGST and then CGST, no. CGST shall be utilized first with CGST, then with IGST. CGST definitely cannot be utilized with SGST. So CGST can be utilized with CGST first and then with IGST. MCQ number 8. The tax under GST registration is being levied simultaneously, exclusively, only by union or only by state? Yeah, everybody is giving correct answer, both simultaneously by the center and the state. Various taxes have been subsumed under GST to make one nation, one tax, one market for consumers. What are the following? Determine which taxes have been subsumed under GST. So basic customs duty, taxes on lotteries, environment tax. So options are there below. Is it just taxes on lotteries? Is it taxes on lotteries and environment tax? Is it only environment tax, or is it all the taxes? The question is, determine which taxes have been subsumed under GST. Okay, a lot of options. The correct option is answer A, that is 2. Only the taxes on lotteries is what is subsumed. Basic customs duty is out of GST. When you import, still you pay customs duty, and environment tax is also outside GST. Only taxes on lotteries is one which is subsumed under GST. Okay, be careful here. Be careful. Last question for the day. Alcoholic liquor from human consumption is subjected to what? State excise, central sales tax or VAT, both A and B, or is it GST? State excise duty. Oh, hey, you people are saying B. Answer is C. Both state excise duty and central sales tax in case of interstate supply and VAT in case of a intrastate supply will be applicable. On alcoholic liquor for human consumption, state excise and central sales tax or VAT both are levied. So it is answer C. Okay. We have 5 more minutes. If you have any questions, happy to answer. You can raise your hands so we can discuss that. Yeah, one person has raised hand, Tambareshwari.
हेलो सर, गुड इवनिंग सर। मेरे को एक क्वेश्चन पूछना था। जो आपने कर्नाटका और सीजी वाला समझाया था ना सर, तब सर मैं आगे बहुत सारे चैट्स आ रहे थे, उसकी वजह से समझ में नहीं आया कि वो 900 कहाँ गया सर। मतलब कि सीजी और एसजी के बीच में डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के समझ नहीं आया सर।
तो स्क्रीन दिख रहा है ना?
यस सर।
तो जब मैं विद इन द स्टेट सप्लाई कर रहा हूँ तब सीजीएसटी एसजीएसटी चार्ज कर रहा हूँ। सीजीएसटी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को जा रहा है और एसजीएसटी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को जा रहा है।
यस सर।
उसके बाद क्या हो रहा है? ये हो रहा है आईजीएसटी चार्ज कर रहा हूँ। जब मैं ये कर्नाटका से आईजीएसटी चार्ज कर रहा हूँ तब ये आईजीएसटी पेमेंट करने के लिए ये क्रेडिट यूटिलाइज करूंगा मैं। जो 900 रुपए का सीजीएसटी का क्रेडिट है वो मैं यूज करूंगा और 900 रुपए का एसजीएसटी जो है वो मैं यूज करूंगा। करेक्ट? क्योंकि मेरा सेल 12,000 का है लेकिन मेरा परचेजेस जो था उसमें मुझे क्रेडिट मिला है। करेक्ट? तो ये क्रेडिट मैं यहाँ पे यूज करूंगा। अगर मैं यूज कर रहा हूं तो बैकएंड में क्या हो रहा है? ये तो टैक्सेस सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट टू सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट जा रही है, कुछ एडजस्टमेंट की जरूरत नहीं है। लेकिन ये 900 रुपए जो है स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का टैक्स अभी सेंटर को जाएगा। करेक्ट?
यस।
तो ये 900 रुपए कर्नाटका को जो मिला था उससे कम करके सेंटर को 900 रुपए चले जाए।
अच्छा।
तो
यस।
एक्शन इंटीग्रेटेड टैक्सेस की वजह से होगा। जो इंटीग्रेटेड टैक्सेस हैं वो 900 रुपीज कर्नाटका से लेके सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को दे देगा.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir.
And further year also again 864 IGST से कम करके स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को दे देगा.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, you will get MCQs in exams too.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Sir, can you please explain once again what is consolidated fund? Because the consolidated fund, you just told the meaning. Sir, I want to know that why the consolidated funds, like matlab, how the revenue is generated and how it is transferred.
Okay, consolidated fund means a fund which is there with the central government. It is called consolidated fund because it includes the funds which belongs to the state and the center. Okay, so it's a fund which has the consolidated money of the center and the state. And based on the distribution of all the respective taxes, what is left over is to be distributed between the state and the center. That is called as Consolidated Fund of India. Yes, Vaishnavi.
Sir, will you explain taxes subsumed in GST again?
Taxes subsumed in GST.
Yes.
We had a slide on what are all the taxes which got subsumed. So if you see here, central excise duty, service tax, additional duty of excise, surcharge and cess, these were all levied by the central government. So those all have been subsumed. Then VAT was levied on intrastate supply of any kind of a sale which you make. Similarly, on interstate supply, central sales tax was levied. Then state government used to levy luxury tax, entry tax, purchase tax, surcharge, cess, all of that is got subsumed. And when you import something, you have to pay a duty equivalent to the excise and duty equivalent to the sales tax. So the taxes which are equivalent to the excise duty, that was called as countervailing duty. CVD is called as countervailing duty. And taxes equivalent to the VAT was SAD, which is called as special additional duty. So when you import something, before GST, you had to pay customs duty, you had to pay CVD, and you had to pay SAD. Now, CVD and SAD has been consumed. So when you import something, you have to pay only customs duty and GST, which is IGST you have to pay. All other taxes has been subsumed. What is basic customs duty? Basic customs duty is the duty when you pay on your import. So basic customs duty means the duty, it's the base customs duty which we pay. That is called as basic customs duty. Okay, so I will share the presentation. Please go through it so that you understand the basics of GST very well. Then we'll get into the other chapters. Our next session is on Thursday. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll have a session. Okay. Very nice. I'm seeing a lot of responses that you have understood. I'm happy that you're able to understand the session very well. That's what is more required. And if there's any kind of alteration which you need, let me know. I can alter and present it to you.